Hello everyone and welcome back to our weekly blockchain gaming news roundup. Today is Friday the 10th of January 2025. Happy New Year everybody. And we've got quite a stacked lineup of news to discuss. First off, let's talk about Limit Break and their release of, so let's go back. Last year, they released their created first protocols for NFT protocols. And now that standard has been released in a token for tokens form. So it's quite technical, but blockchain is a technology, so it will be technical. But talk us through sort of what this means potentially for developers, the developers that choose to implement this new protocol.
Yeah. As you say, it is highly technical, much more technical. I mean, it's for sort of coders really, Solidity coders. It's an EVM technology. So, yeah, I'm only I'm not obviously not a coder, so I'm sort of going over what I've seen, the discussion of smarter people, and reading some of the documentation. So, as you say, Limit Break last year released this new standard called ERC 721C. So, ERC 721 is obviously the sort of standard, the general standard for NFTs on Ethereum, and we've had that since late 2017, and that was sort of a standard that got put together by some of the various people, some of which was behind the people behind CryptoKitties. So CryptoKitties was the first big NFT project sort of that went live on Ethereum and did very well for a while. So that basically just defines what an NFT is: a non-fungible token, a token that is unique from all the other sort of tokens in that collection, and sort of how you can trade them, and sort of what you can do, how they sort of operate as sort of entities on a blockchain. Over time, there's been various sort of updates to that. There's actually another standard called ERC 1155, which again has some interesting sort of elements to it, and in fact there is a ERC 1155C that Limit Break have also done. So the major issue though with NFTs was that you couldn't enforce creator royalties. So that meant if you created, the people who created Bored Apes, they couldn't enforce the fact that they wanted 5% of every transaction to go to them as a sort of creator fee. So for a while that sort of just happened. People were happy to pay that fee. Traders were happy to pay that fee because they hadn't really thought about how they could get around it. But then Blur came up as a marketplace and didn't enforce that fee, and everyone was trading, and obviously you weren't paying 5% of your transaction to the creators, so that was great for you as a trader, but really bad for the creators. So Limit Break took a big hard look at this. Limit Break are a really funded team coming out of the mobile game space with this CEO, Gabe Leiden, who's sort of legendary in the mobile games scene for being very idiosyncratic and very sort of Elon Musk-like in a sort of weird way in gaming. He very much does what he takes a very hard view on what he wants to do. He won't go with the consensus. He's like, we're going to break the consensus indeed and build a new way of doing this. This stuff doesn't work. So it's very successful on the ERC 721 side. On the NFT side, they brought in this new standard last year, and basically all new NFT collections on Ethereum use this standard because it means you can enforce your creator royalty rights, and pretty much all the marketplaces enforce it as well. I won't go into all the details, but basically, you can sort of if you are using this standard and a marketplace isn't using the standard, you can basically sort of block them from trading your NFTs. So basically, Limit Break won that battle, and it was a big existential issue for the NFT space, for the game space, because they couldn't enforce royalties. And it's not been talked about that much, but basically everyone uses it now, and it means that projects can get if there's a lot of trading going on, they can get a revenue fee, which is what we would sort of expect, really.
Staying on there then, were there no systems? Because some people in the blockchain space, not just blockchain gaming, but the Web3 space, are very, so they believe in a completely free economy without any rules and centralization. So would this not have been sort of a little bit of a, do you know what I mean?
Yes, I can see. No, I absolutely agree, and we'll come on to that a little bit. I think with NFTs, it wasn't really controversial because the basic problem was, with we had this massive blow up of NFT trading in 2021, 2022, and then it basically just died away. And the reason it died away was because people were just sort of trading them, farming the trading to get other rewards. And just the creators weren't getting anything from that, and billions of dollars were being traded of some of these collections, and the creators were getting nothing. So clearly no one was thinking, let's create some more NFT collections because we can make a lot of money from it as creators. I mean, that's one of the reasons the NFT sort of boom died off. But you're right, there are within the standards that Limit Break looks created. There are some quite interesting features. So it's not that developers have to use all the features that are in the standards, but one of the more obvious ones was within the ERC 721 standard and within the new one, the ERC 20C standard, you can set maximum prices and minimum prices. So, I say people don't have to do that, but you could create an NFT collection that you can never sell this below 1 ETH. It can never go higher than 5 ETH. So you would cap that sort of speculation aspect of it. So I've not seen anyone doing that yet, but you could do it. And that's, I think, when you would get into that debate around, is this decentralization? And I do think when it comes to tokens, so non-fungible tokens or NFTs, I think they're a little bit different. I think people treat them a little bit differently to fungible tokens. So that'd be something like, like ETH or the Ape coin, or, I'm trying to think of the YGG, Ronin coin, whatever. Most of the tokens we talk about are non-fungible, and that means that they have no uniqueness. That one Bitcoin is the same as another Bitcoin. But when it comes to tokens, if people did start doing this sort of minimum maximum pricing, that would be, I think, quite controversial. And there's other things that are coming up from this standard which are really useful for game developers, but I think sort of cross a line that certainly players of blockchain games may sort of have problems with. So one of the things they can do is you can create a token, and Limit Break calls them app tokens, because they're sort of the idea is they're sort of tokens that are sort of in a way locked to applications. So I can create a token that can only be used in my game. So I could create a game currency that can only be used in the game. It can't be taken out to centralized exchanges. It can't be traded as a speculative asset. So Gabe Leiden, his view is that the reason that blockchain games aren't working is that 99% of the tokens that are created are being held as speculative assets. So I might not be playing a game, but I might buy a whole bunch of tokens in I can't think of a game, but in a game, just to think, the price of those tokens is going to go up, but I'm not maybe playing the game. And what Gabe wants to do is say, if I have a token, you need to force the utility of that token by only working in the game. And they have that would be a very hard take a developer could employ with these app tokens. You could do, because Gabe has spent so much time playing building mobile games, he's got some quite clever ideas. So one of the things is, as you progress in the game, as you level up in the game, you can start to unlock some of your in-game tokens to sell. So if you get to, making it up now, if you get to level 10, you can sell 10% of your in-game tokens. You can sort of trade them out. You can exchange them. So you could sort of start off with no speculative sort of virality at all. And as people level up, you can sort of allow some of those tokens to leak out. That's quite interesting. He also has ideas. You can set sort of different prices. There's some interesting stuff around. Developer could set up a liquidity pool. It's actually more complicated than that. But basically, when people are trading tokens, the developer again gets a revenue stream of that directly. So similar to sort of royalty rights for NFT holders. So obviously that's good for the developer that they can enforce getting a revenue stream. Obviously, the sort of flip side of that is developers could get a bit greedy. so there's loads of other stuff. There's stuff you can have people trading your tokens, but the pair of the tokens. So I have John token, and I can say you can only trade John token with Jenny token. You can't trade it with ETH, or So there's lots of levers. He basically is a total toolbox of what you can do. And my sort of, not my concern, but what I'm interested in is, that provides a lot of opportunity for developers, and some developers are going to really mess this up. And there is and because this sort of control over tokens has never happened before anywhere in blockchain. I think there's quite a high likelihood that there'll be audience or community sort of pushback about you have all these restrictions, and this really comes to your point that is this decentralized? Now, I've sort of raised this a little bit on Twitter, and basically everyone sort of just said, no, it's fine, don't worry about it. Decentralization is irrelevant. No one cares less as long as the number goes up. Blah blah blah. And I sort of to agree with that. But equally, I think it's going to be fascinating. There's a very nuanced sort of thing that is happening here. So we'll see what happens. And I guess the good news is that sort of there is a Limit Break basically started out as a game developer, and they had to build all this technology because they felt the technical base in blockchain was not there for them to do what they wanted to do. So they built this for themselves, pretty much, and other people are using it. So they got this NFT collection called DigiDaigaku, which they did some stuff around in sort of 2022, 2023. It was quite interesting, and they've said they're building a mobile game based around that, but we've not heard really anything at all about that game. Clearly, the reason they've not said anything about that game is going to use probably all these features in a very innovative way because they built the features they want for their game, and so obviously they couldn't start talking about the game until they released all the technology, because otherwise you get the horse and the cart the wrong way around. So hopefully we're going to now start finding out about this game DigiDaigaku from this team who have made some of the most successful mobile games in the history of gaming, and now they've got this amazing toolkit where they can start restricting all these things. So that's going to be super fascinating. So I guess that's the outcome is don't worry too much about this new standard, which is fascinating. If you go and look at some of their documentation, it's really, really interesting how they explain it and all the different use cases. Very ambitious, but how people developers use it will be interesting, and this game will be the first one. And again, another minor point: you can do things like you can create a token that is only used for marketing. So you can basically just come up with a special token which you give out to people, you airdrop to people, but it's locked. They can only I can have $1 million of this airdrop token. I can only spend it in the game. I can't go off and dump it on Binance or whatever. So it's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting because obviously loads of people have been saying for a while no one's going to care which chain. It's only kind of nerdy journalists and some really geeky people in the industry that think that it matters which ecosystem you're on and so and so. But no one's going to care in the future which chain your game is deployed on and which tech you're using. So I think you're right there. No one's going to care about this really. To care about the practical implications of it if it comes to sort of a good result. Anyway, Gabe Layton sort of say that people aren't going to interact with this in the future anyway. All the AI and all these sort of on the
you have to get Gabe is a notorious notorious in some of the views he puts forward, and I wonder if a bit maybe like Elon Musk, whether those views are necessarily 100% of what he actually believes, or maybe the day after.
I'm not sure he'd love to be compared to Elon Musk actually. But...
I don't know. No, but he's a very. I mean, I've met him once, but I've had a few sort of encounters with him. He's a very, very singular person. He's on a slightly different level to the rest of us. Obviously, he's been very successful in business several times over, really. And he's it's one of these. It's very easy to call people visionaries, but the real visionaries are people who sort of don't see. They sort of everyone's looking over here and going, well, how can we build this factory or whatever? And he's going, like Elon Musk, let's go to Mars instead. There are visionaries, then there are visionaries, and and there's really in the blockchain game space, I'm sure there are clearly loads of smart people who have probably thought in some ways about these sort of features, but no one's gone and aggressively spent 2 years building this stuff out like Gabe has, and so that's why it is interesting to see the sort of level of people in the space who are starting to debate some of these sort of issues, and I think it will be we'll see. I think there will be some hardcore blockchain people who think this is ideologically bad, but as at the moment the biggest blockchain game has 200,000 daily players, which is smaller than the biggest blockchain game had 2 years ago. Sort of the argument would be, well, it's clearly not working, so let's try something else.
Right. So in further news, the mobile game publisher iCandy have announced the ZKcandy L2, which is based on ZK Sync. They raised 4 million for their gaming. Well, it's a gaming sort of centered blockchain. So tell us a little bit about that, John, please.
Yes, so iCandy is the company behind it. They're sort of quite well known making mobile games. They're very closely associated with Animoca Brands, both out of Hong Kong. They've sort of even before blockchain, those two companies work quite closely together. So yes, so there is a new. I mean, it's like everyone's been doing over the last year or so. Everyone's sort of coming up with their own L2 or L3 chains, depending on how you want to distinguish them. So this is like a raising, selling some tokens ahead of time, $4 million worth of tokens. Animoca Ventures was one of the key investors. Spartan, the usual sort of suspects there. They say they've got like a big Hollywood IP. I mean, quite what Hollywood IP means these days, we don't know. But they've got 25 games, they say, coming to it. So this is just like the ongoing trend of people announcing sort of fast, low gas fee blockchains that they feel can deal with the sort of millions of players that they feel they're going to get. Maybe I guess one of the interesting problems with Limit Break's new sort of tools is, does every game developer now have to delay their game for 6 months to start implementing these? Because it is such a radical new way of thinking about things. So that might be another interesting sort of scenario where everyone goes, "Oh, this is really cool," or some of these features are really cool. I'm going to sort of delay my game. So we'll have to keep an eye on sort of that sort of knock-on effect from that point of view. But yeah.
So last year we started sort of sensing, towards the end of last year, we started sensing that things weren't going so well for crypto unicorns due to them shutting down some of the sort of side games they had. And at the end of the year, then we had the Laguna Games CEO, Aaron Beyer-Schmidt, contact us to say that he wanted to sort of explain his version of what happened to crypto unicorns, where it is at the moment, and what is sort of coming next. And so you took up on that opportunity and you recorded a podcast with him last week that was published this week. So that was really interesting, I thought.
Yes.
Yeah, sort of from developer's point of view, what happened, to hear a bit more about the DAO structure. It just gives really good insights into sort of lots of industry things, but equally the most interesting thing is obviously the new project, Neo Olympus, that sort of a team called Laguna Labs that sprang out of Laguna Games. So yeah, they're working on Neo Olympus, which is now sort of preparing for its first NFT collection mint. So tell us a little bit what takeaways from that interview. And,
yeah, it was good. It was good to talk to Aaron. So I had him on the podcast before, and I've met him a few times as well. So I like what he's been doing. I played Crypto Unicorns back in the day. So Crypto Unicorns was interesting. It was the first sort of big game on Polygon. It just launched sort of early 2022, just when the sort of crypto boom, gaming boom, was sort of it was just sort of, it had peaked. So they sort of launched at a good time, and so their assets, their crypto unicorns, these unicorns were like selling for $1,000, and but as he sort of says in the interview, the crypto sentiment then was going down, and it sort of ended up over the next 6 months. Sort of ETH went down from whatever it was, $3,000 to, I think it had a low of 800 or something. So they launched sort of, there was a whole bunch of stuff that was outside their control. There was also a whole bunch of stuff that was within their control that Aaron is to that degree quite honest, and he says that I own those sort of failures. I was CEO of the company, and their sort of technology was sort of quite clunky. They had this sort of off-chain, on-chain sort of wallet and stuff. A lot of the game was on-chain, but some of it wasn't. So you had this sort of complicated thing, and you could lock assets into the game. So there was a big UX problem, which you wouldn't have now because just infrastructure is much better. Again, I guess like a lot of projects, nothing to do with blockchain or gaming, the writing was on the wall quite quickly. Because with blockchain games, when they go up, they rise so high. When they go down, they they really go down. and obviously the problem sort of ends up with people coming in and going, "Oh, this game's really hot. I'll buy $10,000 worth of crypto unicorns," and then 6 months later it's worth $500, and obviously those people are pretty angry. Now, the argument is whose fault's that? Is that the game's fault? Is that the CEO's fault? Is that the person's fault? Obviously, a bit of blame maybe spread around. I would say mainly the person who's investing. Going back to Gabe Leiden, he'd say, well, if you'd put limits, minimum and maximum limits on the price of your NFTs, this would stop some of the problems. But crypto unicorns is sort of like a sort of classic example of a blockchain game. They were well funded. So they probably spent too much money trying to resurrect it. They spent 2 years, putting new sort of some quite interesting features in there. They had these things called shadow unicorns that were sort of bad unicorns that could attack these people's fields, and they put in different jousting, had a jousting mode. As you said last time we spoke to them on the podcast, they were expanding. They loved the IP. They were saying we're going to do more sort of Web 2. They did some Web 2 mobile games. They did like a Rumble, a Fall Guys type sort of thing, and all these sort of different things just to try and get more people into it. But I think, in retrospect, within a year that game was sort of dead, and they should have moved on. But the good thing that Aaron did do, and he said it took a long time for his investors to agree, is he handed over all the IP for crypto unicorns. So legally, all the IP around that is now held within a DAO structure. That DAO also has a treasury of about $1 million, and Laguna Labs has nothing to do with that anymore. So obviously they have, in a sense, some influence because they created the game, but legally that's been handed over to the DAO holders, the token holders. And he said there's different groups who have different ideas about what they want to do. Some want to be more like Pudgy Penguins and do like IP and NFTs. Some want to sort of resurrect the game more. It's different, obviously, as ever. But if this was a Web 2 game, just everything would be shut down. The servers would be shut off. Everything would have gone. In this case, if you were a really big crypto unicorns fan and you want to keep doing something, you have some technical expertise. There is some money there to see if you can sort of reboot that from the current situation. I don't know if that will happen or not, but it is to some degree it is a recognized IP in the crypto gaming space, and so maybe you could start building up, doing collabs with other projects and stuff like that.
Well,
and the NFTs
I thought that he pointed out then was sort of that it failed partly because it was a terrible idea with crypto unicorns to try and be a game for everyone. It's sort of trying to sort of be mainstream or go down that route. Whereas with Neo Olympus, obviously, it's completely different idea, at least initially. So yeah.
Yeah. So So just quickly move on to Neo Olympus. So basically, at one point, the developer Laguna Games was 90 people developing all these crypto unicorn stuff. They basically obviously had to sort of massively scale down. There's only 10 of them left. They're sort of, I think it's a separate company now called Laguna Labs. So this is like their sort of second attempt, and obviously they've taken all the learnings and all the failure, everything from crypto unicorns, and now they're making a sort of super hardcore, fully on chain, exact opposite sort of thing, a game called Neo Olympus. Actually, it's a game that they were working on as a Web 2 mobile game before they started working on crypto unicorns. So sort of they did actually have a publishing deal from Warner Brothers. I guess it would have been in 2020 or something like that. So they sort of have an idea, some thematic thoughts around that, and it's sort of like taking the sort of gods of Greece, sort of Zeus and all that sort of stuff, and making them into sort of mechas and titans, and so that sort of more hardcore sort of hybrid sort of IP, aesthetically sort of quite dark. The first bit of it is very crypto heavy, so they're going to do this NFT launch, and you get these NFTs, and you basically have to re-roll the stats. So you're spending money to basically get new versions of the NFTs to get the best stats you can. Then you have those NFTs, and they start producing resources, and there's a land system, and then the game becomes like a tactical sort of RPG. So there's sort of one core thing for the sort of crypto guys, and then there's maybe something that people who are not going to maybe have a lot of high end NFT assets can just sort of play the game. It's like a Fire Emblem is a famous sort of a Nintendo RPG, so they're taking some elements from that. So we'll see how it goes, but it's very, very, very different, and obviously they're sort of and it is, again, I mean, maybe in this podcast everything goes back to Gabe Leiden and Limit Break. That they're not. We didn't talk about that because it hadn't been announced. But some of the things they're thinking about are similar. So they have this idea of fractionalized NFTs and a sort of a token that's sort of quite locked in, and there's sort of it's just not quite sort of deflationary mechanics built in. So they thought very much about the economy of the system, whereas with crypto unicorns, everyone was just breeding more unicorns, and so you end up with loads of NFTs, and the price goes down. And in this case, there's a sort of fixed limit of NFTs, and actually the tokens are sort of being burnt, and they're being sort of spent and burnt. So there's always less tokens around. So they've got a deflationary type aspect in the heart of it. So that's taking some of the ideas that you can't just have an open economy and let everything go crazy. So it'd be interesting from that point of view. And again, it's interesting. It's fully on-chain game, so we're seeing we quite like those games conceptually. Quite hard to get people into them as a broad market, but we're seeing a lot of people focus on fully on-chain games because of the advantages it gives. So in some of those aspects.
Now, because we're talking about kind of Gabe Leiden and game economies, and on that theme, we can talk about Soccerverse, I think, which launched yesterday, actually. Big sort of football management MMO from UK-based studio, also on the name Soccerverse, I believe. Yeah. Tell us about the game and the game economy and why again, comes back to Gabe Leiden.
Yeah, so I've been involved with Soccerverse since 2018 as an advisor. So it's really great that they finally launched after all this time. So as you say, it is a sort of a simulation of football in terms of playing football and in terms of the economics behind it. So fully on-chain game running on Polygon. There's sort of various different aspects of it. I won't go into all the detail. At the moment, you can sign up and become a manager of a team. So because this is a sort of a blockchain global sort of server in a sense, there's only there can only be sort of one manager of Chelsea. There's only one Chelsea, and you can only be one person who's manager of Chelsea. There's only one Milan, or Rome, as it would be. So it's not like a game where you have your own little sort of server of football teams and like a soccer manager, a football management game, a football manager game. This is a Soccerverse where one wallet can be the manager of one team. You do all the football management stuff. You set the tactics, and you can sell players you don't want. You can transfer players in that you do want. You're playing every week. You're playing or 2 games a week. You're playing against other people. You're set up in the sort of the leagues around the world that are currently set up, so that all the teams in the Premier League will be in the first division in the UK league, because the Premier League is obviously an IP, so it's just called the Division 1, Division 2 sort of thing. So, but over time, the divisions, obviously, if Chelsea get relegated from Soccerverse League, and then they'll go down to League 2 in Soccerverse, but they still be in the Premier League in real life. You have all the players, so the players have the player stats. Again, it's not fantasy football in the way that if Messi breaks his leg tomorrow, then in fantasy games you wouldn't use him. In this game, even if he's not playing in the real world, he's still in the Soccerverse game until he retires. So there's quite a lot of moving parts on it. It is fascinating. Again, coming back to the Gabe Leiden stuff, is there's an in-game token, but it's only an in-game token, and it only really has value within the game. There's no point buying loads of it and speculating it, hoping for it to go up. That's not the reason for it. The reason is you would spend it in the game to get better assets, to make your team better, to get the sort of the glory of getting promoted and winning the league, winning the cups, and all that sort of stuff. So it's quite interesting, from being hardcore fully on chain, and sort of how it mixes up real world value and sort of the in-game prestige, which is sort of, even for a lot of blockchain games, is what we're seeing people leaning into more and more, is how do you create a sort of a social universe where to be number one on the leaderboard for Axie Infinity, you may get some tokens or an NFT or something as a reward, but to be the number one player in a game is sort of the reward in and of itself. So we're seeing sort of, I think the new wave of games are there is a financialization in there, but it's not, you're just playing these games. It's not play to earn. It's not the primary point of playing these games. So anyway, obviously I would be very excited about Soccerverse because I've been involved with it for such a long period of time. But I think there is something really interesting there. I guess you do have to be interested in football. That's maybe one of the
Good. Check
things.
that out. So the match sort of week starts on the 18th of January. So you got 8 days remaining to sort of prepare, set up the game.
Yeah, I mean, you can. So the first game starts on the 18th of January. Seasons run for 6 months. But you can join. You can obviously become a manager at any time if a club doesn't have a manager. So there is that aspect of it, and it basically will now run forever. Hopefully, we'll see.
Excellent, thank you. Right, I don't really know how to structure this last bit of the podcast. It's almost like it needs, I think AI stuff starts deserving its own podcast. And talking of that, I think that's actually quite a good idea. Maybe we should do that, break out into a separate podcast every week with just AI stuff.
Could do, yeah.
It's hard to keep track of everything. But anyway, we start with not Mojo Melee, but Planet Mojo, which announced at the end of 2024, I think it was their sort of Mojo Emma or AI Mojo or
Emma was the agent.
They got an AI agent called Emma anyway, and that sort of goes into the entire Planet Mojo ecosystem as so like they've created this platform AI
worldwide agents
platform, for gaming and entertainment, and Emma is part of the first game there as well. She's playing poker, and now they've got Pudgy Penguin, which they announced this week, is one of the AI agents, which is going to play poker in this initial game that they're launching through that platform, which is Agents of Poker. Is that right?
Agents of Poker. Yeah.
Anyway, and so they've also launched a token, WWA token, as part of it, and this other AI agent, which is a WWA agent. So can't have enough of it. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Explain.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how we're going to deal with this AI agent stuff. We'll see how long it sustains, I suppose. But so basically, this has been the big meta over the last sort of couple of weeks or last month or so, is the virtuals platform where anyone can create an AI agent. And we're seeing now lots of people doing that. So as you say, Planet Mojo have created theirs using the virtuals platform. Illuvium announced a deal as well with virtuals, and so Sovereign, the ex-Breeder DAO people, are doing a game agent called Ready Gamer, again using virtuals game framework. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on with the virtual side. We just expect more and more of that stuff to be happening. I guess one of the early guys into AI and blockchain were Today the game. So they've always been an AI game, and they've had this agent out called Limbo. That's actually using their own tech, but is launched on Solana. So a lot of the virtual stuff is all on Base, and there's the other sort of blockchain is some of this stuff is Solana. So there's another one, AI16Z, which has a lot of the sort of tech behind it, which is non-blockchain specific, but they're on Solana. So those are the two sort of blockchains where we're seeing stuff. And I guess at the moment it's sort of fun. Obviously, they're all sort of doing the same sort of AI agent things. It's not particularly groundbreaking when you talk to them. If you've spoken to ChatGPT-4 or any of those other Claude or anything like that, obviously they're all plugging into the same sort of back-end systems. We've not got the stage where people are launching products where they've built their own large language model with their own data, because obviously that's the clever bit. So at the moment it's very sort of frothy. The other interesting thing is obviously with these platforms, certainly with virtuals, is everyone can launch a token. So you have an AI agent who you can chat to, and is probably automated on X. So it's sometimes funny to watch the interactions between some of those. Some of the AIs are trying to, some of the smaller AI agents are trying to like talk to the AI agents. There's all the more popular ones to get some of their followers, and obviously because they've all got tokens attached, it's all this speculative thing.
Basically, taking the worst of human behaviour and then just highlighting it.
But clearly there is sort of, because obviously this is a the next wave of sort of ChatGPT type systems coming throughout the economy. So whether we think everyone's going to lose their jobs or all this sort of stuff, it is interesting. And if you are a digital entertainment sort of product, then you're thinking about how to use this. And there's superficial ways of doing it, which some of these are, and there's obviously over time there'll be some sort of deeper products, and obviously again there'll be products being created purely to use these. So we haven't really seen those yet. There's a sort of
Super Champs, excuse me, Super Champs ecosystem. We've also announced in AI agent Kiju, I think it's called.
I mean, I guess a more interesting one. There's a startup called Sozai who've announced a Telegram game called Telemafia, and again, interesting. Coming back to Limit Break. So the founder there used to work at Limit Break. So I don't know whether they're going to be using any of the ERC 20C stuff, but they're using AI agents in a sort of a sort of very socially dense sort of mafia game. The idea, it seems like, may have actually come from Gabe Leiden, actually, because Gabe Leiden did have a mafia game back in the day. So again, there's a lot of this sort of cross pollination stuff, and we'll see. With a lot of these things, obviously, when speculation is we're making money as part of it, then these things can go very high, and then they can sort of break very suddenly, as we saw this week as well, when there was a big sell-off. 10% sort of sell off in Bitcoin. A lot of these AI token coins got slammed right down again. So it's definitely not a done deal. But clearly, I think every blockchain game is going to be announcing something in this space. And how many of those initiatives actually do something non-superficial in the fullness of time is a much more open question. So.
And one of the companies actually announcing their sort of big push for AI recently is Xterio, which now in sort of hindsight might be logical due to how they've been slammed really following their token launch, XTER token launch. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what's been going on with that? Because you've covered it quite well. We've not covered it on blockchaingamer.biz per se, because it's not sort of, I mean, it's gaming, but it's not, whatever. But you've covered it a bit more in your personal stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I won't get into too much detail because it's getting a bit long now. So Xterio, launched start 2024, was a very highly regarded sort of new blockchain gaming platform, raised quite a lot of money, had some experienced game vets on it. Did this big sort of NFT token. It was a big NFT launch, the Incana, and there was the promise of their token coming out, and they had all these games that they were going to be working on. So they this time last year there was a lot of hype around blockchain games and lots of tokens going live, and everything seemed like it was going into the bull market. I'm not part of that community. I don't own any of the NFTs. I'm not being involved in that at all. I've sort of very much been an outsider. There's some people who were big fans of it sort of fell away quite quickly and thought that some of the decisions being made and some of the communications were not great with the community. Again, this is a little bit like people in spending money they don't have, tens of thousands of dollars, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases, buying NFTs in the hope that they're going to get all these rewards. And you sort of think, well, where does the blame lie? Does the blame lie with the team for maybe hyping stuff up? I think they did maybe overhype some stuff, but how much of the blame lies with people who are spending money that maybe they shouldn't have been spending on these things? Anyway. The token finally came out after sort of, I guess, some delays. And I guess, like a lot of these things, Xterio were quite successful in terms of driving social farming. So there were various things they were doing. You mentioned the last one was this thing called AI Befriend, and it was basically just an AI bot that you sort of spoke to. And the more you did that, you sort of, you're getting more points in the airdrop. You're generating more points, so in the hope you would get more tokens when the airdrop happened, and they had over 1 million people doing that on a DAU basis, so it was very successful from that point of view. The end of last year, and again, always the problem is these people, once they get their allocation of tokens, they get very annoyed. So someone was saying they spent $20,000 buying all these NFTs, and then he got $1,000 of tokens, which to some degree you go, the math doesn't add up, but equally you go, well, sort of what did you expect? And so some of that again is how the token's launched. Some of it is how much of the token is launched. People had to sort of claim their tokens and stake them for longer, which is now a common thing. Mockers did that. Pirate Nation did that. So that's sort of common. But I think that there was just the community had soured over various things, and people were holding on in the hope that they were going to get a good token allocation and the token was going to go up. The example was Pudgy Penguins, where people got like $85,000 worth of Pudgy tokens per NFT, and then the token went up. So obviously in that situation, people don't sell the token because it keeps going up. Whereas in the case of Xterio, the token, everyone got really annoyed. Token went live, everyone just dumped it. All the NFTs went down, and now, again, like with crypto unicorns, can a project be resurrected? Well, yes. Partly if crypto sentiment goes up again, then the prices will go up again. If they actually release a game, the problem is they've not really released a game. They've had one game out called Age of Dinos, which is a fairly sort of standard 4X mobile strategy game. It's okay. It's not going to knock your socks off. They have all these other games supposedly they're working on. If they can show those are great games, then obviously people will come back around. But a lot of sort of quite influential people, like the Wolfsdale, quite sort of well known as influential sort of KOLs, they all got massively into it. Personally, I think they got quite over their skis on that one. They got much too enthusiastic, and they're all very annoyed. And some other sort of big influencers just sort of won't touch that again. So again, maybe
any game legends new.
No, but yes. I mean, if you are sort of, I think the thing that Gabe would always come back to is we are giving you a framework in which you can build sort of slowly and you can scale volatility slowly. You have these levers, and I think if done well, that's totally correct. But I think some developers, the more complexity you give them, then the more they can screw things up, I suppose. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good, and note to end on. Right. So thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.